Welcome to the new season of the Live Your Spa Life show. The SPA in Spa Life stands for Seek Power Always, that divine power within you to do what you're here to do. The theme for this season is intentional living. Amazing people like you share ways to live by design and with purpose to ensure that this short ride of life occurs with choice, physically, financially, spiritually, and in your relationships to create a world-class life. In these times of uncertainty, it's time for you to move past the distractions and start trusting yourself more through your God-giving knowingness. No one truly knows better what's best for you than you. In this season, you'll have plenty of examples of people choosing their best life and creating a positive impact through intentional living. Thank you for sharing your precious time with us and being part of the Live Your Spa Life conversation. With us today is AmyK Hutchens, best-selling author of 2 books, The Secret Leaders Keep and Get It, the 5 steps to sex, salary, and success you want. She has 20 plus years of experience training and consulting with clients such as Whole Foods, the Home Depot, Starbucks Canada, Comerica Bank, Expedia, and hundreds more. AmyK travels the globe physically and virtually, sharing with executives, business owners, and sales leaders how to confidently and competently navigate their toughest conversations without saying something that they regret, giving their power away, or damaging their relationships. AmyK received her MS from John Hopkins University and has been featured as a guest on numerous networks, including Bloomberg, Entrepreneur, USA Today, US News and World Report, NBC, and ABC. AmyK, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Diane. It's a total privilege and honor. Thanks.
This is just, the room always lights up when you're in it. Your energy is just so contagious. And I just love, you talk about beliefs, about what you stand in. And one of the things that you believe in is that life happens one conversation at a time. Can you talk a little bit more about that and how that builds confidence and resiliency?
I really think, Diane, that if we can slow down long enough to realize that our professional careers are advancing one conversation at a time. Our relationships are developing in a healthy or an unhealthy dynamic, one conversation at a time. And those 3 o'clock in the morning conversations with me, myself, and I are determining, your own resiliency, your own ability to get up and either go kick ass and take names or can fill you with self-doubt. And so I always say that if we can just take that deep breath and say, okay, I just need to navigate this conversation. And I take that one step forward and navigate it successfully, I get the life that I actually desire and want. And so it's a belief that I've been preaching and following for over 30 years now.
I love it. It's so great. I mean, the words we say matter, how we say them, how it lands with people, what that looks like. How are you connecting with people, let's say in like the new generation of like kids today, if you want to say, it's so funny saying that, kids today are, they're texting, right? And they're not having as many personal conversations. I mean, I've even seen with my own grandkids, they'll text each other and they're in the same room as the person that they are with. How is that changing just the broad stroke of communication?
Well, it changes our ability to connect and be more intimate. And I use that with the original definition of the word. So intimacy between friends, intimacy with a partner, intimacy with family members. It's the idea of, do I feel seen, heard, and understood? And, it's so funny because we've got a young gal in our life. She's 19, Scott's daughter. And she said the other day, she's like, I have this really great idea. I think people should just get together with like a beverage and really talk to each other. And I was like, the old days. I was like, okay. I was like, well, you take that innovative idea and see what you can make of it. But I do think that what happens is every generation brings challenges. Every generation brings solutions. And so I often joke that if you're a traditionalist, it was always the, hey, keep your head down. Nobody's talking to me. I must be doing a good job. And then we came along, our generation, Generation X, and we were like, we want feedback. We want to be coached. And then this generation is like, I want feedback in real time every day. And then they're so funny. They're like, just don't leave it in a voicemail because I won't listen to it. But communication techniques have changed. The depth of humanity and wanting to connect, using our words and our tone and our tenor so that we can be empathic, that's stood the test of time.
Oh, I like the nuance of that because we have to find out what is that way? Like, how is it that we're going to communicate, meet people where they're at, how they can hear you, what that's actually going to look like. And, we've seen more than ever, particularly the last couple of years, where there's been, a lot of social isolation, people not connecting in the way that they have, and, just getting back into the groove of life and deciding what they're going to do. And as part of that, you've talked about how quickly people bounce back from life. It's not if you're going to be hit hard or, if something's going to happen, it's going to be when and to what depth, and things affect people at a different level. So can you talk a little bit about, the high vibe living?
Yeah. So I think, it's interesting. I get asked a lot, are you always this energetic? And the answer is no. 95% of the time, yes. But it's a choice. It's a practice. And here's kind of the paradox that I always bring up, because a lot of people are like, well, then I'll just fake it. It's not about faking it at all. In fact, I think that we need to lean into all of our emotions. We're humans. We have a whole spectrum of them. But how you stay resilient, how you stay high vibe is by actually that paradox that Stockdale introduced to us. Stockdale was a prisoner of war, and he stayed at what they irreverently called the Hanoi Hilton because it was a prisoner of war camp. And when he was interviewed, they said, what separated you from all the people that didn't survive? And he said, well, the optimists didn't survive. Now, that was the opposite of what everybody was expecting to hear. And they're like, what do you mean the optimists didn't survive? He said, the realistic optimists survived. So he said, those who said, oh, I'll be home for Christmas. Oh, those who said, I'll be home for Easter. Christmas came and went. Easter came and went. They still weren't at home. Stockdale said, I wasn't sure when I was going to get home, but I knew I was. And so if I could face the challenges as they came and be realistic with the challenges that I was facing with faith that I would get through it, he said, that's how you survive. And in our vernacular today, I think that the way that I use it and interpret it from a communication standpoint is, I am never going to tell you, Diane, that you're going to be fine. What I am going to tell you is you can face this. So I'm not going to Pollyanna you with, oh, it's going to be fine. Oh, it's going to be fine. Because I don't know if it's going to be fine. But here's what I do know. I have faith in you and your tenacity, your perseverance, your resiliency to say, you can face this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. It's so good because that just puts it back into your court, right? About looking at like how the things that you can bring up of yourself, your own like past experiences, like you just take all of everything you've had in your life and be able to go like, I've done hard things, right? And we can do hard things. And when we look at that, we can look at things from a different perspective. And you also talk a lot about having choice, right? About really choosing about who you get to be today. Can you talk about having that choice? Because I think also this is kind of another kind of fallout, if you will, of the last couple of years where kind of people feel like the sky's falling, they don't have choice. There's just like a lot of things going on. And so how you approach things from a place of having choice really makes a difference in who you decide to be each day.
You and I are so aligned on this. It's that who are you up to being? And then realizing that you can't control everything. You can't. But you can take your power back by focusing on the choice of, I can choose my reaction. I can choose my attitude. I can choose where I channel my energy. I can choose how I want to be impacted by this person. I can choose the story in my head. I can choose the energy that I want to give to this or the energy that I want to take away from this. And so I think a lot of it comes back to when somebody's impacting your bubble, your energy, your frequency, you've just given them permission to take your power. And so a lot of what I say is take your power back by focusing on and choosing what you can control, which are all those things that we just talked about, including the focus of where you want to channel your sense of self, your sense of worth, and where you're going in the world and who you're up to being and expanding your own capacity. Nobody gets to actually decide that for you unless you let them. And so I really do believe that's a great way to take your power back.
Yes, absolutely. And you've also talked about that the biggest challenge is action. So talk a little bit about that.
It's so easy to dream. It's so easy to be like, well, I'll just magnetize this and I'll just manifest this and then I won't do anything. I'll just wait for it. And so I always joke that, a little elbow grease would never hurt you in your manifestation dreams. But taking action, though, comes from a place of confidence. And so a lot of people will say, well, I'm just not confident enough to do that. I'm just not confident enough to go there or say that or be that. Confidence is being in the practice of taking action. So when you prove yourself or prove to yourself that you can take a micro step or a mini step, or you can say this or you can do that, that's how you actually earn and build confidence, through those actions. And so it can be something as minor with a child or a grandchild saying, hey, I want you to go up to the host or hostess at a restaurant and see if they have availability. And this little kid is like, I can't do that. I can't speak up for myself. I can't talk to that stranger. And you're like, it's okay. I'm right here. Just go do that. It's not the thinking about it that gives that individual confidence. It's the action doing of it. And then coming back and saying, oh, that didn't go so bad. And I did it successfully. And that, to me, Diane, is the biggest fear that prevents people from taking action, is they fear that they won't be successful in the new way. And you won't know until you try.
Right. It's that catch-22, right? Of like, it seems scary, but if you don't do it, then you don't get to actually overcome that. You actually don't get to have the experience of that. As you were saying that, it was reminding me as, especially when I was a young police officer, right? I mean, it's like you're walking into situations that you have no idea how they're going to turn out. You don't know what the player is going to be. You don't know the conversations. And all you can do is take that first step, right? It's just move into the conversation, evaluate what's going on, and then just be present to what's happening. And so you build like, okay, I've gotten through this situation, so I can use those tools again. I can, see how it is, and use things a little bit differently too, in how we are looking at things from a different perspective. And I know that fear pops up for a lot of people. So can you share a little bit too about, just how does fear come into play? How do you overcome it? How do you use it?
Okay. So fear plays a huge part in the idea that it wants to keep us safe. And so a lot of people try to say, I don't want to be scared, I don't want to be fearful. And yet it's a natural protective mechanism. I mean, think about all your years in service. You were probably, when you were first starting out as an officer, by the way, thank you for your service. When you were first starting out, you were filled with fear. You had never walked into a home before. You had no idea what was going to happen. You didn't know what domestic issues or who was going to have a gun. We have that same sense of fear in any career when we're doing something new for the first time. And yet I always say to my coaching clients, it's going to boil down to two fundamental fears. I'm either not good enough or I don't have enough. So it's either I'm not good enough, fill in the blank. I'm not good enough at shooting my gun yet, or I'm not good enough at numbers and spreadsheets, or I'm not good enough at my networking skills, or I don't have enough. I don't have enough experience, time, dollars, energy, resources, creativity, fill in the blank. But it's yours. And so the question then you have to ask yourself is, how truthful is that story? And what actions will help me to change or shift that story? And here's kind of the funny thing too. Then you get pushback from people who will say, I want to be successful though. Like, I don't have enough experience with this. I'm scared. And it's like, okay, I understand that. But what happens is that when you take that action, you then get experience, which feeds your confidence to then go take that next action more successfully. And they're like, but what if it goes wrong? And you're like, well, then you'll learn from it and you'll be wiser the next time. And so I often, as a speaker, people will say, have you ever flubbed on stage? Why, yes, I have. And those were some of the biggest learning opportunities for me to change the way I play, or to never repeat something, or to do it completely differently, so that I become wiser in that skill set. And that's this whole beautiful cycle of learning, is that we have to be a little bit scared. Then we try it, we get some success, it comes back, it makes us wiser. We go back, we do it again. And that's how we build expertise and wisdom.
Mm-hmm. Oh, this is so great. So what's something that people are surprised to learn about you?
That I'm actually an introvert. So, and that is a true statement. So I have all this energy. I love being with people, and I fuel up by being by myself. And that always, people are like, no, that's not true. I'm like, yes, it is.
I totally get that. I have a hermit aspect of myself as well. And I feel like if you can go inside and actually regenerate, then you can actually give more and be bigger in that. And so I think people think that those are opposites, but I think that they actually work together really well.
Yeah, I do too. Or at least it works for me. I'll say that. It works for me.
Yeah, definitely. So, on the path of just doing your work and doing life, there are some discouraging things that come up. Can you share something that has come up for you that has either been a disappointment or discouraging, and how you looked at it and how you moved to the other side?
Do we have 5 hours? No. So first of all, I think this is a really great question because I think we all resonate with the idea that there are hiccups and there's barriers and there's disappointments. Very few people will talk about it though. And I think that that's where we all connect in our humanity is we can go on all the social media outlets and everybody's having a fabulous time. Everybody looks amazing. And we feel like, oh, is it just me? No, it is not just you. We've all done this. And I can talk about so many things, but I'll give you two examples where disappointment really struck home. The first was in a job where I had the biggest title in corporate America that I'd ever had. I was making the most money that I ever had, and I was so miserable. I just wasn't wired for being in a corporate executive position with tons of responsibility and no authority. So it was that constant of I want to make such a big difference and I can't. My hands are tied behind my back. I can't move this thing forward. I can't impact people. And it really sort of caused me to go in this spiral of, is this where my life is going to go? I mean, like, is this as good as it gets? When outside it looks like it's fantastic on paper, but I'm miserable on the inside. Well, the good news is I quit and I started my own company and was wildly happy. And that's the most important thing I can say. The second thing that really surprised me, which I never would have predicted because I'm loyal to the end, is I ended up divorced in my 40s. And it really pulled the rug out from under me as to where I thought my life was going. And here's the thing that I will say. When you crash and burn, when something in your life really disappoints you, don't try to repress it. Don't try to rush through it. Go through that whole grieving, loss, feel every single emotion, knowing that it's going to be amazing on the other side and trust that it's going to be amazing, but you have to do the work to get there.
Yeah, what a great distinction, because no one wants to talk about like the ugly cry, right? Or the time where you are shifting gears or you're not sure what that's going to look like. And so it's so important to be in the moment of those things, but also know, this is part of that reality, of the hotel, right? Of the prisoner of war, right? Of being what's the reality of it that you're looking at? Yeah, I'm going to get there. It may not be pretty. I don't know what it's going to be, but when I get there, I know it is there, right? And I think that's part of just viewing life from a different perspective and being able to see things from a different way as well. So I think that's super important.
Well, I think that we get this message that all these terrible things, if we admit to them, they're going to define you. And it's like, no. These hiccups, these disappointments, they don't define you. But if you let them, they will absolutely expand you. And to me, that's the beauty of life, is that you don't get to have these really high highs and feel all these amazing things until you have some of these, what we call shadows in my work, to sort of give definition to all the light and the goodness in your life.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and speaking of shadows, you've shared before about like 9 out of 10 kids are told that they're not good enough. That is such a huge thing for people to carry through life. And if they define themselves of that, right, if they live into that, right, their view of the world is much different. So what can we do for, our children, right, to let them know that who they are is enough, right, that they don't have to be something different than that? How do we address that?
We start with affirmation. And I think that in our especially right here in the United States, I'll just speak for the country that I was born and raised in, we give a lot of achievement-oriented messaging to kids. So we praise them for the grade that they got. We praise them for doing a good job. We praise them for standing in line, for cleaning up their room. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what we're overdeveloping are social skills, how to get along, how to go along, how to people please. And so what a lot of young children come to learn, especially girls, is, oh, I'm loved for what I do, not for who I am. And so changing some of those affirmations to just, you are a beautiful, child of whatever you believe in, child of the universe, child of God. You are loving, you are kind, you've got a good heart, You're out there, doing amazing things as a spirit, as a soul, and making sure that our affirmations are building up their sense of self and not necessarily praising exclusively for their achievement. And there's a great study, it's a great story. And I come from a background of education. So I used to teach elementary school. I love this as an example. When we tell somebody, a young kid, that they've gotten a great grade and we go, "You're so smart," they're actually less likely to go out and try something harder because they're afraid of ruining their identity of being smart. So they actually become more hesitant in trying new things. When we praise them not for being smart, but when we praise them for their efforts, like, you put a lot of effort into that, you put a lot of energy into that, then they're more likely to go try the next bigger, better, bolder, harder thing, because we praise them for their effort and their endurance, not the outcome. And so again, it's just using this myriad of messaging to make sure that we're developing a whole child and not one that's just going to grow up to be like, "Hey, it's only what I do in the world that gives me a sense of worth."
Boy, that is such a huge thing, because how kids receive information, right, is a big aspect of that as well. I can remember when my oldest grandson was really little, and I used to teach him to say, like, "I'm the best." And we used to do this whole exercise where we would drive in the car and it'd be like, "I'm the best, I'm the best, I'm the best, I'm the best," right? And it was interesting is that his dad was like, "Why do you tell him that? Because, he's not the best. Like, if he's in sports or whatever, and there's somebody better or any of those kind of things," I go, "You're missing the point of all of that, right? He's the best him, right?
Yeah.
Who he is the best in that. And if he grows up knowing I'm the best, regardless if somebody outperforms in something else, at a different standard, if he shows up as that, he's going to be, he's going to show up differently. He's going to be different in that." And so I think it's really interesting to be able to separate that out, because we do have so many reward systems that are on, the accomplishments, right? There's so much there in that. And so I think how we approach that with ourselves, how do you think people can develop that more? Like, if they didn't have that as a child, or, they're as an adult and there's been like all kinds of things that have happened in their life, and they are maybe part of that percentage, right, where they don't see themselves in the best life. How can they kind of, go into that as an adult?
Well, the good news is there are more and more resources now than ever. So back in the 1950s and 60s, this whole conversation would be like, "Oh, that's woo-woo." Like, "Oh, that's taboo," right? Yeah. Now we talk about empathy. We talk about all these things about your spiritual sense of self. We talk about your resiliency. We talk about empathy. We talk about love as a normal part of our vernacular and our vocabulary. So there are hundreds of books on the market. There are hundreds of podcasts like this one. There are, and that was not a commercial. I mean, that was a sincere comment. There are hundreds of people out there with tools and techniques that are saying, you have the ability as an adult to invest in yourself, your own mindset, your own potential, your own thoughts and feelings, and to develop them. And again, it's a practice and a skill. You did not come into the world believing that you weren't the best until somebody else told you otherwise. And as a small child, we don't have control. We don't have an understanding that all of that's coming from somebody else's filters, from somebody else's baggage. And so I love the idea that you sat with your grandchild in the car and you're like, I'm the best, because here's what that mantra, that affirmation, that internal belief is going to do in the future when they have a disappointment. They're going to be like, okay, I'm human, but I'm capable. I'm the best at being me, and there's nobody else like me on the planet. And that just internal sense of worth is a game changer.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to talk a little bit too about, so you and I met at Epiphany, right? We got to both speak and be part of a program that raised funds for Operation Hope. It's Generate Hope, right? And so there are a lot of things, and that helps, women who were involved in trafficking to thrive, right? To really have like a really comprehensive way to learn new skills and to be in the world with that. What led you to be part of that organization, and what do you see for, particularly women who got into a profession, if you will, I don't even want to say profession, but really were coerced in a way that they maybe didn't come from that place of being able to see their worth and showing up in the world in the way that they wanted to?
There are so many reasons why I got involved. Everything from supporting strong, capable women who can choose to change and turn their life around. I think it's an extraordinary message to the resiliency and the capacity of women that you can be in one situation and you can come out of it and create an entirely different life for yourself that is beautiful and bold and brilliant, and a course for you to be your best self and not be defined by something that happened to you when you were younger. I was also attracted to it for the sense that the more women that we can find and transform their lives and help them to escape from this, the better. The more education and awareness we can get people to involve to stop trafficking, the better. The more that we can help women use their voices to begin with, to feel a stronger sense of self so this never happens to them. And so I think that part of what fires me up the most, Diane, is this passionate sense of the sooner that we can get to young girls and teach them their worth and help them use their voice to say to no to these manipulative tactics, to not be persuaded, to not feel like their only sense of worth is when they give their power away to somebody else. Those are all the things that I think that if we can educate young girls early, we can prevent this from happening in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. I highly agree with this. And I think it's so important, especially for anyone listening that has been in a situation like this, right? And maybe it hasn't been as formal as actual trafficking, but maybe in an uncomfortable dating situation or a relationship where you didn't feel empowered. I mean, I have found that a lot of times, people come back to me and after they've listened to an episode on something and they were just like, I never wanted to share this aspect of myself because they kept that within themselves. And so I love that we're having this conversation, because for anyone listening today, that, as you said, like no matter what has happened in your past, you can change it in an instant. You can, how you look at it, you can look at how you've learned from it, how this has happened for you. There's so many different ways where people are like, how did I, that you can overcome hard things and that you can really look at your life as, you know what, I beat that. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think there's something as when you build upon things that you have overcome, it really can make a difference.
It does. And sharing your story makes a difference for everybody else. So the more that we talk about how we've overcome our hardships or how we've overcome difficulties, when we talk about the fact that we all have a choice, what happened to you last week, what happened to you last year, what are you going to do with that in the sense of it shaping tomorrow is, to me, a far more productive conversation. Where are we going tomorrow than what happened to you a year ago? Now, I'm not saying that what shaped you in the sense of all of this building upon each other for you to become wiser and more helpful to all those around you. But it's like, are you going to stay stuck, or are you going to use it to ignite you to go forward in a way that you never would have had the opportunity to serve, help, and support other people than if you hadn't had the life path you've had?
Yeah, I love that. One of my favorite distinctions in that is like, are you going to look at whatever happened to you in your life as a victim or a victor? Right. Yeah. And it's all perspective, right? It comes down to that choice of how am I going to utilize this to, move forward in my life, to look at things in a different way. So I think that's such an important thing to look at.
Well, I think that one of the things that both you and I are also aligned is creating that sacred and safe place for people to share and for people to be able to transform and tell their story and get the support that they need. And that's also why Generate Hope is such a great organization, is they are that safe and sacred portal for women who are seeking to turn their lives around.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and speaking of creating safe space, one of the things I love asking the guests on the show is, because we live differently in our kitchen versus our bedroom or our living room, what's your favorite room in your home and why?
My favorite room is my casita. So it's this little bungalow out in the backyard where my office is. And it has this fabulous little fireplace and this little cozy chair that I sit in. And so every morning I go out there, I drink my cup of coffee. There's a fire on winter mornings, and I journal and I meditate. And the first hour of the day is just that quiet, sacred space for me to really reflect on who am I up to being today.
So great. I love it. Well, I know that our listeners are going to want to stay in contact with you. How can they best do that?
Oh, so easy. So shegetsit.com. We have lots of free resources. So one of our core values here at She Gets It is to be generous. And so if you come to our site, you can get lots of free tools, lots of goodies to help you use your voice, both at work to advance your career and at home so that you can get the relationships and love that you're looking for.
Awesome. I love that so much. And as you know, our theme for this season is intentional living. So in what way are you living intentionally today?
Every day I pick my intention, and every day, so I'll go a little bit woo woo for you, but every day I pick a card, like an oracle card, and I brought one for today's show. So I'll just put it in here. This was the one that I chose. Like, what message do we want to give? And it says, my career is one of creating a joyful life experience. So everything that I am doing today is to help my career, my clients, and all the people that I'm impacting today to experience joy along the way.
I love it. Can't get more intentional than that. Awesome. Well, Amy, thank you so much for your wisdom and your energy and your giving heart. I just thank you so much for being here today on the show.
Oh, thanks so much. Hugs, Diane.
And to our listeners out there, thank you for being here, for showing up, for being intentional, and, really listen to this, share this, and really look at, in what ways are you being your best self? Where are you maybe hiding behind certain ways? What conversations do you need to have differently? If you have any of those questions that you need to have support in, make sure to tag either myself or Amy. We'd love to support you in any way that we can. And until we connect again, live your spa life. Bye for now. Bye-bye.